is Hunter. We got another E36 built video. We got a battery in there. We're gonna move it today. All right, we're gonna locate to the battery, to the trunk, to the back seat. The battery used to be there, obviously, but we're gonna move it here so it's easier to access. Yeah, we're gonna you know, mark some holes so we know where to put the mount, obviously. There we go.
All right, so I figure it's probably best that I handle the power tools portion of this video, so I'll get these holes drilled out that Hunter marked.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Hunter. I am Uncle Zach's favorite nephew. I like dirt biking, guitar, and watching Formula Drift and Supercross.
So how do you feel about Uncle Zach's timeline on getting the car done before the start of the season?
Yeah, there's absolutely no way. He has really 4% done. He really hasn't even painted the car, nor had the engine cleaned up and working. He said he's getting this done in 3 months. It's been 8 months now.
Hunter was in here earlier doing an interview. What do you think you had to say about getting your car done in time before the start of the season?
I'd say he's pretty confident in me. I think thinks I'm going to get it done probably sooner than what I initially even thought.
There's no chance getting this done.
I can't imagine he would really have anything bad to say.
Bro is trying to build a pro car, but bro doesn't have pro skills.
Or anything negative.
Bro has no humor.
The only thing I could think he'd say is that things are on course and going exactly as planned.
Bro has no riz. Bro has a weird haircut, and he is gonna be homeless with cash, looking at his Megan Fox picture.
All right, since Hunter had to go home, you guys get me back again. But finished getting the battery mount installed. Got the battery mount in there, and then test fit a passenger seat to see what kind of room we're working with. And it is should work out fine. I sat in here. I have plenty of room between here and the kick panel back there. So if someone taller rode in here, it might be a little tight, but we can still lose about 3 inches of that upper bracket if we needed to. So not really sweating it. If it becomes an issue, we can move it. So pretty stoked on that. Now we just got to cut the power wire down. I had a realization the other day that drift season is quite literally a month away, and this thing from the naked eye does not look like it's going to be a moving car within the next 6 months. Decided to kind of switch focus on some things where we're kind of focusing on little dumb things that I shouldn't be focused on at all, and should be more so focused on things that are going to make the car drive. So I got the manifold on, got the turbo on. Everything's kind of loosely bolted up. I only got a couple manifold bolts in, and I literally have one turbo bolt on. But when I originally bolted this up, the first thing that I saw that I was like, yep, I'm absolutely not using this manifold, this is ridiculous, is that the housing is hitting the block right here on that little ear. So I guess technically if you rotate the housing, it wouldn't hit. But I just was like, man, there's just no way. Like, it just seems like such a janky product that you didn't even do enough due diligence to see if it would clear the block. So I guess it could be turbo size and other things related. I'm probably overreacting. So I think what I'm going to do is just grind that little casting area on the block down a little bit. And then we also might reclock this housing some. All right, so I apologize for the audio being back and forth with mic and no mic. I just keep forgetting to put the mic on, but we got the motor back out of the car, and we did clearance the block. We ground down the ears that were there, and then the little webbing there. So everything seems to be clear. Also, the manifold is not completely bolted up. And then also you'll still have a good 1/8 inch gap for a gasket, so that'll also bring it out too. So should have plenty of room between the block and the turbo housing from hitting. So pretty stoked on that. All right, so we did get the boot on, and it is not going to work, which I kind of had a feeling. It would have to be way too tight of a 90 for it to work. I don't think it would hold up to the heat. Maybe it will. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's not a risk I'm willing to take. So I went ahead and ordered a Vibrant Cast 90. And so we're just going to weld a tight 90 straight to the housing. So that will basically put our 90 about right here. So that's a good 3 or 4 inches. It'll drop that. And then we can rotate that housing over a little bit to the right. And that'll put us pretty much in the sweet spot. And then I'll also build like a heat shield underneath the manifold to kind of help. But realistically, we should be in pretty good shape. So I also got the valve cover painted. I initially started to paint this yellow because I wanted something that would kind of pop. But as I started painting it, I was like, I don't really like it. So I hit it with the stainless finish that we used on the calipers down here, and then cleared it with the same holographic effects over that we used on the doors, and it looks sick. So pretty stoked about that. Most likely this will be the only portion of it that you see. I do plan to run a shield, but I did paint the valley black. One, because like the valve cover material itself had like pitting and stuff in here, so I figured it would look best to just hide it with a flat black. And then also it kind of gives it a little bit of contrast to the valve cover, so when you put the coil packs in here, they'll kind of just blend in. And yeah, this back here peeled when I peeled the tape up, so we'll have to fix that. But pretty stoked on it. I think it looks pretty good in the engine bay. Obviously, once we have more in here, it'll look a little more natural. And then also, once we clean up the engine, the front side of the engine a little more, this is all grime. So once we get all this cleaned up and it's got a nice aluminum finish with everything else, I think it will look pretty good. So a big thing with these cheaper manifolds is that you want to make sure that the mating surface is nice and flat. So that is why I used a Sharpie, kind of scribbled along the surface of it so that it will show us any low spots as we sand it down with a flat block. Ideally, you would use like a flat stone or something more true, but this did the job for me. So went ahead and got that sanded down, got it nice and flat. And as you'll see here, I did check it with a straight edge and everything checked out good. This is pretty important. You want to make sure you check it with a true straight edge. And if you look closely here, you'll see I did put some relief cuts in between a couple of the runners, and that is mostly just to help with expansion and contraction. Next, you'll see we are using a template to trace something out on steel here. That template is a piece of painter's tape that I put on the manifold and then just cut out the shape and then took a punch, as you'll see, and punched out the holes right here. You'll see that so that we can drill it. This is so we can make a block off plate on the manifold where the wastegate would normally go, but we are no longer going to be using that. And here we're just using the bench grinder to get this nice round shape on here so that it's not all pointy and looks more uniform. And here is the finished product. Obviously needs to be painted, cleaned up a little bit more, but pretty decent. Bit of stuff done since the last clip that you guys saw, so we're going to go over all of that stuff right now. So the engine probably looks like it's in the same spot as it was, because it technically is, but since that clip, we've pulled the engine out, cleaned up everything up front, got all this stuff sorted out. The oil tree housing's back on with the new gaskets. You'll see the transmission's bolted up. The engine's actually bolted into the car. Everything is in for the final time, obviously, unless something catastrophic happens. Hopefully not. Fingers crossed. You can kind of see that the exhaust is going to be extremely tight. So we're going to have to cut this off the bell housing, and then we're going to have to immediately 90 this down and get it over. I don't know for sure if we're going to have to neck it down to 2.5 to get past the bell housing and then bring it back to 3-inch. So right now I've been cutting pie cuts so we can try and get a 90 in here. We might be able to get away with just putting like a little dent in the downpipe right here. I'm not sure. We got our wastegate block off plate. The manifold has like this is where they want you to mount the wastegate, but there's no room to mount the wastegate. So I made a plate. Some people weld it, but I'm just going to put red Loctite on it with a gasket just because I really don't want to weld to this manifold. And for some reason, if we ever needed to use this, I don't see that ever being the case, but just figured it's easier to bolt it on. So got a nice thick plate there, so it shouldn't heat up and warp and leak or anything. And so we just got to clean that up, paint it, put the gasket on, and that is all done and squared away. Then you'll see we got the front fenders on and cut. But as you'll see here, we got a stick of 3-inch exhaust pipe. I've been trying to make some pie cuts. I'm kind of struggling with it, if I'm being honest. I made pie cuts before I made a full exhaust for my first E36, which there's a video on here of that. And I don't remember having this much trouble making pie cuts then. But as you can see, we got some of them. I've been cleaning them up on the belt sander, but the problem we've been having is getting this rips, and then basically it's not good anymore. And then my belt broke, so struggling there a little bit, but we are getting them done. So I'm going to try a new method on the pie cuts that will hopefully speed up the process and make it a little bit easier, and also make it to where I don't have to cut as many. So really we should only need about 6 pie cuts if I cut them right to get a 90. So that's what I'm working on right now. And then some other really cool news is TurboSmart hopped on board for the 2025 season. So I got one of their super nice gates. This is their Hypergate. It's the Gen V 45 mil gate. These are the best gates on the market, pretty much. So really, really stoked to be running this. This was one thing that I was really adamant about was, this is going to control my car from blowing up or not. So, this is not something you want to cheap out on. By all means, people do, and they work fine, but it wasn't something I was willing to cut budget on. Some things I did cheap, like the manifold, but stuff like this and the fuel system, I really want to make sure I spend the money. So really nice gate, really good stuff. Obviously haven't got to use it yet, but really stoked for TurboSmart to be working with us this year and hopefully years to come. So yeah, pretty stoked on that. So we'll talk more about this when we go to fab it up onto the hot side, but So while making the downpipe, I did forget that we need to install our air fuel ratio sensor for the can lambda on the link. So I got the bung here. I already got a location figured out for where we want to put that. I already test fitted on the car, made sure it wouldn't interfere with anything, and it is clocked in the optimal position. So we'll get that drilled and get that welded onto the downpipe. I did also get our wastegate lines routed with a nice polyurethane tubing. So we'll be using push to connect fittings. We currently have the plastic ones on the wastegate because I thought that's what I would use. And the more I thought about it, I kind of want to make sure everything is as temperature proof as possible, because this will have aircraft grade high temp sleeving on all of the wastegate lines so that we can ensure that we do not have a wastegate line failure. And then obviously we will be running the Link boost controller, just a 3-port. We'll probably mount that up here somewhere, but I already got the lines kind of ran up to here. We got a T-fitting on the turbo housing that it jumps off and goes down to the wastegate, and then one line jumps up and comes up here to the boost controller itself. But I'll hop down there and show you guys the fittings that we're going to swap out for the plastic one. So just a nice stainless fitting. Don't have to worry about these melting. Obviously, there is a rubber seal in here that could potentially fail, but still better off, I think. The plastic ones are probably more than fine. I just don't want to take any chances. And these look better. As you'll see down here, we did get our Turbo Smart wastegate welded to our exhaust housing, and then we made just a small little wastegate dump here. And then that's our wastegate lines, obviously not secured or anything yet because we have to finish them up, but that's roughly where they will be. We'll swap these fittings out with the stainless ones that I have, and then I also have a stainless T to swap out up here, which you guys should be able to see. There's the T right there. So we'll swap that out with a stainless one as well, just to be safe. And then we did get our turbo oil drain hose on. We'll probably take that one off and put a slightly longer one on just to make sure that it's good. Really crossing my fingers and hoping that it drains, but I've seen multiple people do a similar style drain and they didn't have any problems, so we'll just hope for the best on that. I did go ahead and finish up on the battery mounting in here, so this is all tightened up and secured. Got our power terminal routed and shortened, and it is all connected up there to our bulkhead connector. All this stuff we're still finishing up. I decided to reroute some of the rock light wiring so that it goes through this rubber gasket, since the power wire no longer routes through there. I'm also going to change the routing of that side as well, so that way when we put the backseat delete in, we don't have to worry about any wires getting pinched or rubbed with that being in there. So we'll get that finished up too. Obviously got our ground and stuff connected there. Really nice clean ground. So it's all coming together slowly. As you guys saw in the clip earlier, we did get all of this sanded down and painted. Got the front nose panel painted. Really stoked. I ended up figuring out that this is a post facelift nose panel, so it has the nice bigger grills. So we'll get chrome ones ordered up for that. But yeah, got all this stuff in here. Obviously this will probably come back out again, but kind of just wanted to fit everything up. Obviously getting a new front bumper. This is just for mock-up purposes. And yeah, so ideally this would be pink, but we don't have any of the pink paint, so black it is. And I honestly don't care that much. I just want this thing to run. So all right, so we got the stainless fittings on. These look so much better. Pretty stoked on that. Now, I was going to mount this in this video, but I did end up just ordering a actual mount that's made for this. So it's like a little piece and this bolts into it, and then you can actually bolt it. I don't really want to try and use these tiny little holes down here to mount it. I think it'll just look cleaner if we just use a mount for it. So got that ordered up. So in the next video, we'll finish that up. But with that being said, this is going to wrap up this video. The next video you see of this car, we will be starting it. So super stoked and super excited for that video. But yeah, next video, the car will run in that video. So stay tuned for that. Got a lot of parts coming, a lot of stuff that is pretty much going to finish this thing up. So stay tuned for the next one. Hopefully this video wasn't too all over the place, and hopefully it was a good watch. So see you guys.